So now what I'd like to do is go back and fix the side, but I'm also going to make some changes to the back. The first thing we're going to do on the back is on this image, if it'll zoom in for me, which it won't. There we go. We have this logo here on the back where the windshield is that we actually didn't put there before. We made this logo and the one that's on the front, but we never made this one. Fortunately, it's going to be fairly straightforward to add this logo, and you also notice that it has this black rectangle that's behind it, which is probably what sticks it to the window. So we're going to need this black rectangle as well as the logo. So I'm in texture paint right now, and I'm going to switch to edit mode. And all we're going to do is we're going to steal this one from the front. So select one face for each letter, and I'm in face selection. So select one, hold shift, and start selecting at least one face on each letter as well as this logo thing. And we also want these two back faces here because that will be the black rectangle. But actually, for now we don't want to select this yet, so just deselect these by holding shift and clicking them again, right clicking on them. Then go to select and choose linked. Now that the logo is selected, we're going to select these two faces by holding shift and right clicking them. Do shift D to duplicate, right click to cancel the movement. And we're going to start positioning this. We're going to drag it up on the Z axis and drag it back on the Y until it starts to get closer to where we need it, which is back here. That was actually pretty good, even though I wasn't trying to line it up. It's pretty good right there. So I'm going to press period to focus in on the selection, and you'll notice that it's rotated the wrong way and it's facing the wrong way. So we're going to press R, Z, 180 to flip it around. So now we have McLaren written from left to right like it's supposed to be with the logo here. It's also not centered. It's going to be, basically we're going to have to eyeball it because it's no longer mirrored. But before we do that, I'm just going to go to side view by pressing 3 on the number pad. And we want to try to match the angle to the angle of this part of the car right here. So we want to press R to rotate and basically try to get this angle right here on the bottom to be basically the same as this. I think I got it fairly good right there. And then we're just going to drag it down until it disappears, and then drag it up until you can see it again so that it's basically as close as possible to this back window here. But we also want to make sure it's all the way at the edge, because in the picture it goes all the way to the edge. So we want the bottom to go all the way to the edge. And now what we want to do is go to edge select and select this edge because it's not quite where it needs to be, but actually since it's not mirrored we have to select this one as well. So hold shift and make sure both of these are selected. Press 7 to go to top view to make this a little bit easier. And we want to make sure this goes all the way to the edge, just like that. And we can move this middle one as well until it's perfectly at the edge. And we can see now that this is not centered because we have this white line, which is our selection. And then we have this underlying line, this line that's underneath, which is the center part for the car. So it's not totally centered yet. So we're going to have to try to center it by going to face selection, and we're going to select all the letters as well again. And it's fine that if you select these other ones, because we're going to select them in a second anyway. And actually I think this little logo part's kind of hidden behind this, so I'm going to have to move that up in a second. But I'm going to do select linked and then press 7 again for top view. Make sure you get all your stuff selected and then just zoom in until you can see that there's a difference between these two. Press Z and try to match the center line up as best as you can, and just zoom in and out a little until you're satisfied. It's probably not going to be perfect, like that's not perfect, but it's fine. It's not off by enough to make a difference. So now I'm going to deselect these two squares and bring these letters up a little, because this part of the logo was kind of hiding behind the letters, or behind the rectangle there. And another thing you'll notice about this logo is that it's actually quite a bit smaller than the rectangle. Right now we have it pretty much going from the edge to the edge. At least the letters are going basically edge to edge. And there's actually quite a bit of space between the letters in the beginning and the end. So we want to make sure we scale this down by pressing S to scale. And we're going to have to recenter it a little, possibly. It actually looks pretty fine here, so just scale it down a little, make sure you have a little space on the left. And there's actually a little less space on the right, but that's how it is with the real thing. If you take a close look, there's a little bit less space on the right than there is on the left between the logo and the edge of this piece right here. So this is actually pretty accurate, I would say. Just make sure your letters are above these two rectangles here so that they're actually visible. If we really wanted to get technical, we could go back and do a shrink wrap modifier again to try to line these up, but I don't think it's necessary at this point. So I'm going to go to vertex select now, and I'm actually going to select all these vertices here. I could have just done it in face select, that's okay though. Because what we want to do is give this a bit of depth. It's not going to be perfectly flat. So we want to press E to extrude now that we have this selected. Right click to cancel, and then just drag it down a little. If you're having this problem where it's actually, I moved it a little bit too far in this direction, so what I'm going to have to do is select these vertices here. Or if you're in face selection, you can just select these two faces and drag them back a little until they're hiding behind the window, just like that, so that they're not protruding through like they were. And you can see that this part's actually it's a different color than the rest of it, which means the normals are messed up in this case. So I'm going to go to select and then linked to get all these squares. The letters seem to be fine, it's just these square parts, or rectangles. And then go to mesh, normals, recalculate outside. And that'll correct that issue that we had. So that's basically going to be close enough. The good thing about duplicating it like that, at least what I found, is that now that it's duplicated, I do believe if I select these letters here, and just a couple of them's fine, and then do select linked, you'll notice over here in our UV editor, I just press period to focus in on these. We already have them UV unwrapped, and that's because we duplicated it after we already created the UV map for the one that was on the front. So now there's actually two faces here. They're perfectly on top of each other. These letters here are going to be exactly the same in terms of the UV map as these letters over here. So everything's basically all set up for us, which is going to be really nice. The only thing we're going to have to do, because we created these new faces on the bottom, is we're going to have to hold Alt and right click this edge to get the whole face loop. Just make sure you're in face selection, hold Alt, right click on this edge, and that'll give you the whole loop around. Because these faces are new, you'll notice that there's nothing over here on our UV map. Actually, there is somehow. Let me see. Yeah, it's probably not in the right position though. And well, we might be able to leave it. Let me see what the rest of this is. I'm not sure. I don't remember if the front is a different color than, because this is just going to be a solid black. I think the front's going to be a different color. So we are going to have to UV unwrap this again. Just to be safe, it's not really a big deal. There's not a lot of faces here. I know my view's kind of moving around. I was just using period to focus in. But we would just want to do select linked here. And we're going to have to UV unwrap these again. But actually, it'll be better if we just make some seams here. All these corners, or these 4 corners, we want to make a seam. So just select the edges here. Make sure you're in edge select these edges, do mark seam, go back here, select the face, select linked, U, unwrap, period over here in this window to focus in, G to bring it down. Looks like it's kind of messed up actually, and you know what the reason is? Because I didn't delete the faces on the bottom. So I'm going to press Z to go into wireframe and select the faces that are on the bottom. Just make sure you have the bottom ones selected, and then press delete, choose faces, and then we'll try this again. Same thing, select them, U, unwrap, and now we get a nice unwrap. Scale it down with S. We can put this anywhere really. It's going to be a solid color, so the size doesn't matter. The position doesn't matter. We just need to put it somewhere, and over here is a good spot. So I'm going to press R, then 90 to rotate 90 degrees. Scale it up here because we got plenty of space. We don't have to make it small, even though it could be really small, but doesn't have to be. So that's all set there. The letters are already all set because they were duplicated from the front. So everything's all set as far as that goes. And the next thing I wanted to do is go back to texture paint. I do like the back of this, but I think I want to add a little more details. Like we have these black outlines here in the front. I want to kind of do something similar to the back to keep a similar style. We're not going to add a whole lot of detail right now. It's pretty much going to stay the way it is, but we are going to change our color to black. Press 7 to go to top view. Turn on face selection. Select one of these faces. Press L to select the rest of it. Shift H to hide the rest of the car. Go down here. We're going to change this to probably 2 pixels, the radius to 2 pixels. And change this from space to line. We're just going to make a line straight down here and across here to add a little more detail similar to the front. So I'm going to select just a little bit off this corner because we don't want to paint over the gray part. Drag your mouse down, hold Alt, and then let go when you're satisfied. Try to position it right at the end of the previous line. Drag it over here. And then let go. That looks pretty good. So that gives us just a little more detail there. We're going to do the same thing for this window, but we're going to need to use curves. So we're going to have to switch to the curve right here. You'll notice we got this other curve. We'll just press plus to make a new curve. Hold Control to add a point. by left clicking. So hold Control, left click, hold Control, left click. Repeat the process until we have this shape. We're going to start selecting control points by just right clicking them and dragging them. This is the wrong one, of course. It's not doing anything. This is the main control point, so I'm just going to right click to cancel that movement. And we're just going to go until we find the correct one, which is this one. This is a straight line, so we don't have to do anything, but I'm going to try to select some control points here so that I can get the shape that I want. I think this may need to move up a little. And we'll do a test drawing here, and surprisingly that's almost perfect, except I think this one probably needed to move down a little more and then change this curve. Something like that. That's pretty good for a first try, I think. But that's basically it. You could add more details. I'm going to switch this back to space for a second, and now that I'm done with this, I'm going to turn this off, take a look at it. So it gives it a little more detail. It just makes it gives it a similar style to the front, and that's basically what I was trying to do, is keep a similar style. So now the side, which I don't really like, we're going to redo this. So we're going to turn on face selection, Alt H to unhide everything. And not this, well, I guess this picture works. So I think this black rubber actually kind of goes out a little bit beyond where the window is. It's like kind of on the outside of the window, and it actually like goes around where this part is, the part that holds the mirror. So it actually would go like down here and around the mirror, of course, and then back around like this. So we have to try to make that happen here. So we're just gonna start selecting with face selection on. You want to start selecting the faces that you're going to be drawing on. Just to be safe, I guess I'll select these two slivers here, just to make sure that we can draw next to the light. Or not the light, you know, the mirror. So to make this, I'm just going to switch to the line brush. We've already got the color at black. We can set the pixels to maybe 3. And it's going to be easier if we're in side view, so we're going to press 3 on the number pad. And we're just going to start making lines basically from one vertex to the next vertex. You can see where the angle starts changing, so you have an idea of where the different vertices are. You basically just want to go vertex to vertex when you're making straight lines like this. And you don't really need to use black. We could use a lighter color for these. I think we should probably use a lighter color. Not really like a super light color, but something that's not quite so dark. We'll just try a few of these. That'll probably be okay. I just gotta be careful to try to keep my line consistent so that it's not really hiding behind. Because if you draw like over here, your line's gonna get cut off at some point. So you don't wanna go too close to the edge of your selected parts here. We're gonna have to clean it up once we're done because there's a few spots that don't have color but that should have color. And you'll see what I mean in a second. And it's probably going to happen when you're doing it on your own model as well. So if you zoom in, you can probably see, like, right here is what I'm talking about. I didn't get close enough to the edge, so I'm going to have to redo this line, at least the bottom of it. And I'm going to try switching this to erase alpha and try to get rid of my little mistake up at the top. And I'm going to switch it back to mix. So the rest of these we probably will have to clean up just to be safe. And then I've got to fix like this part right here. I've got to go back and do erase alpha. This isn't the best option because it doesn't really look quite as good as I wish it did, but it does clean it up and make it so that you don't have any extra like color where it's not supposed to be. So I'm going to switch this back to mix now. And we can take a look at this. This is what we have. Just added a little bit more detail. But this part on the inside is also supposed to be darker as well, so we're going to have to use the same color. And I think actually I want to round this off a little more, or I want to make it a bit nicer, so I'm going to zoom out a bit because I'm in too close. It's a bit better, I suppose. So now that we have that, I'm going to switch to the space brush and select these inner faces. Make sure you have face selection on. And we're just going to make this brush bigger by pressing F, scaling it out and fill in this inner part. Make sure you get all the corners because those are usually the hard part. To make sure you get all of it. So there's that. And already it's starting to look a little nicer. We got some extra details. So the next thing I want to do is go back to face select and select these faces. And what we want to try to do is make like these parts, but this will be last. And there's also like a lighter gray here on the inside, so we're gonna have to do like two or three colors on this inner part here. So I'll start with, I guess, this color and just paint over what we did before because we don't really want it. We can actually press 3 on the number pad, Shift H to hide everything else, and then that'll give us just this to work with. So we want like a darker color on the outside and then a lighter inner color, and then like this color here. So actually I'm going to just press Alt H. I kind of forget which color this was, even though we just did it. Oh, what? It was this color? Alright. So maybe I want this to be a lighter color then. So I'm going to select this by pressing S. Select that color, figure out which one it is. It's this one. And then I'm going to go back to my face selection. Select these faces again. 3 on the number pad, Shift H to hide everything else, and I'm going to color over it, because this is the color of the front window and the back window. So to keep it consistent, this will be the color of the primary color of the side window, and the outer edges will be this color. So select this color, change it to maybe 4 pixels. We'll do the same thing with the line brush. Start making lines around the edges, going vertex to vertex. You want to try to keep these lines very thin, because the lines we made on the front and the back windows were very thin. And again, it's like a consistency thing. You don't want to change your style from one part of the car to the next, because it will just make it look out of place. It's probably a little too thick there, so I have to undo that. I'm going to undo this other one too, because I didn't go far enough. So that looks okay. I'm just going to take a look at this and see how it looks. That looks alright. I'm not sure about that though, because it makes it look like the lines are too thick right there. So let's see. Let's actually just make the brush bigger. I just want to go back and take a look at it again, compare it. So I'm just going to color over this again. So that has our thin lines there. Maybe we'll just leave it like that and make this line. So I'm going to press 3 on the number pad, and we'll switch to a black color. Change this to maybe 10 pixels. Switch it to the line brush. And make a line right here. Use Alt to make a straight line. Maybe make another line like this to make it a bit wider. And then there's one in the back as well for the back window, and it kind of angles like this. So we're gonna try to angle it like this, and it's a bit wider than the one that's in the front, so we want to make it a bit wider than the front one. Something like that. And you can take a look at it. That's not too bad. So we can add in, we can try to add in a few more details, possibly with a lighter color here, maybe 3 pixels, still with the line brush, I think. and we'll see if this adds any extra positive detail to it or if it makes it look worse. It's making these darker lines stand out a bit more, which is to be expected, I suppose. But we'll see what the overall result looks like in a second here. It's not too bad, it just doesn't really fit in with the rest of the car, I don't think. So maybe for now I'm just going to Control Z to undo those. It's something to keep in mind for the future. We can consider doing something with that. But I'm going to try switching colors and maybe paint around. So we're going to do Alt H, and I'm going to paint around this other thing, I think. Change the brush size to 4, and you'll notice we actually have, or at least I had some white right there that I had to paint over, and then we're going to just paint around the mirror part here. I'll take another look at this window, see if we can do anything to kind of make it a little more unique. I did try a few other things, but I'll take another look at it. So for now, what we're going to do is just go to Image, save as Image, save it as Details, and then save your Blender file. I'm going to give this another quick try to fix this, make it look a little better. So I'm going to switch to face selection, get these again, Shift H. I'm going to do this a bit quickly just because I don't want to spend too much time on this. We're going to go to a solid black color, I guess 4 pixels is, try 3 pixels. We're going to go on the outside. Same thing as, well, looks like I'm going to need 4, so I'm going to Control Z that. Again, making thin lines if possible. So we'll take a look at that. I messed up this last one, that's alright. I Control Z'd and I'm going to fix it. And now what we want is this color here. I guess we can probably leave it on 4. We want to go around the outside here again. Try to get it as close as possible without drawing over the original black lines. It's fine if you kind of draw on this, because I'm going to change the color in a second here. I'm not really fond of the solid black. It's a bit too dark compared to the rest of the car, I think. It just sticks out more than it probably should. So now that we're done with that, we actually have a nicer looking car. And this is what I mean by it sticking out a bit more. Like it's just a bit too dark, I think. It draws too much attention. And this is the area that has like some of the least amount of detail. You really don't want people's eyes being drawn to an area where the detail is lower. So I think if we make this a lighter color instead of a pure black, it's not going to be so strikingly obvious compared to what it is right now. So I'm going to press 3, back to side view, back to face selection. We're going to change it to maybe this color, and I'm going to make it 10 pixels here, brush size. Draw straight down and hold Alt to make it straight, completely straight. For this one, you can't do the Alt trick because it only makes straight lines up and down, left and right, 45-degree angle, I think it is. So you got to do this one by hand. Be very careful. I think that's pretty good there. So that kind of makes it a bit lighter. It's not really, it doesn't stick out quite as so much, I think. And I guess it's a matter of opinion, I suppose, but if you want to leave it the way it was, you can just Control Z until you get the black ones back. But I'm going to stick with this, so I'm just going to go ahead and save it. Go to Image, Save as Image. Save over this one. And then make sure to save your Blender file as well.